Okay, so let's talk about these mind techniques. Like how does mindfulness come into play? What are things that people watching right now can start applying in their life?
Yeah, so I started my work in pediatrics, working with kids and adolescents in their families, and then I moved to psychiatry, and I noticed that the family lives that people have really affect them. And so, what I'm about to say before I get to your question, Andy, is to say that the attuned communication between a caregiver and a child is like the opposite of abuse and neglect. So what is an attuned communication? It's an integrative relationship. It means that a caregiver is honoring the differences between the child's needs for physical affection, for closeness, for respecting their boundaries, and their own needs to be a parent with their own opinions and points of view, or whatever. And they realize you're differentiated people. So if a parent, for example, is sexually aroused, they may say, "Oh, I'm sexually aroused. That's inappropriate for me to take out my excitement, arousal on a child, my child. I should go have a partner that I'm experiencing my sexuality with, not a child." So that would be where each can have differentiated experiences and they're honored for those differences, but then they're linked with affectionate, responsible, appropriate connection between a parent and a child.
Mm-hmm.
That's an integrated relationship. And here's the amazing thing. When that attuned relationship where the parent is present, attuning to the internal life of the child, resonating with the child and developing trust. This is the first acronym we'll probably talk about today, PART, P-A-R-T. The parent is present, attuned, resonating, meaning they're changed because of the child. Trust is developed. When they play their proper part, the brain of the child becomes integrated. So to put it really in a direct way that's kind of mind-blowingly direct, integrated relationships stimulate the growth of integration in the child's brain, which is the basis of well-being. Compromised integration compromises well-being. So that's for a relationship. So you go, well, oh my gosh, I'm 20 years old, I'm 30 years old, I'm 40 years old, whatever. I didn't have that when my brain was growing. What am I going to do? Well, of course, you want to have really healthy, integrated relationships now, but one of those most important relationships is the one you have with you.
Mm-hmm.
And when I first learned about mindfulness as a meditation practice, I didn't know much about it. So the amazing thing is that when you look at the research on mindfulness meditation and look at the outcomes for programs, for example, like mindfulness-based stress reduction, MBSR, the outcomes are virtually identical to the outcomes for studying relationships between parents and children that are called secure attachment and mindfulness seem to be woven from the same cloth. So for me, what was really kind of a burning question was, why would a relationship between a parent and a child have such similar outcomes when it's integrated to the relationship you basically are developing with yourself in mindfulness practice? So what is that mindfulness practice? I think what's going on basically is you're creating an integrated relationship with yourself where you're present, attuned, and even resonating with yourself with acceptance and developing trust. And this part that you play with mindfulness, I think, is an internal attunement that parallels the interpersonal attunement of secure attachment. And so the reason that the outcomes are similar is because the process is actually the same. You're creating these huge states of integration, either interpersonally induced or internally induced. And there's a saying you can say, where attention goes, neural firing flows and neural connection grows. And what that means is you are developing an integrative energy and information flow pattern that is stimulating the growth of circuits in your brain. And that's why in both cases you see integrative communication seems to cultivate the growth of integration literally in the brain, the linkage of differentiated parts. So
Wow,
we
I'm
can,
like
yeah.
mind blown right now. That's amazing. I had no idea that connection had been drawn.